Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had someone ask me kind of an interesting question. They said, Jason, isn't it true that anytime circulating insulin is elevated in your body or any other fat storage hormone, that you don't lose any body fat until it comes back down? Good question. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now, this has nothing to do with me personally. Let's just get that out of the way. People are going to be like, well, you're not ripped, so why should we listen to you? Well, because I'm going to repeat what every expert out there says who has an advanced degree in this area who does get people super shredded. So let's just repeat what they know. In fact, we're going to mention everyone from Alan Aragon, Eric Helms, hell, even my nemesis, Dr. Lane Norton, will tell you this exact same stuff. And these are all people with advanced degrees in the field who have all either competed in bodybuilding, prep bodybuilders, competed in powerlifting, prep powerlifters. They all know that the insulin obesity model has been debunked. It's not accepted. No one who's a registered dietitian who has worked in an obesity ward accepts this nonsense. It's perpetuated by authors like Gary Taubes, who is a journalist by profession before he became a book writer and a lecturer. All right, this isn't reality. It's not to say that circulating insulin doesn't blunt fat burning temporarily, because it does, but there's a good way to look at it. Look at it this way. What would cause insulin to be elevated? Like elevated to a high enough level to blunt your body's ability to burn fat. I want you to think about it. Elevated blood sugar. That's going to come from consuming carbohydrates, alcohol, or protein, right? Well, you just ate food. So if you just ate a bunch of food, your body has a fuel source. So yes, the circulating insulin, while it's present until it shuttles all those nutrients where they need to go, you aren't going to burn much fat, right? Because you're getting, the insulin is going to your muscle tissue. Muscle tissue, particularly muscle tissue in people who are trained, is very insulin sensitive. It attracts all that insulin, sucks up all the glucose. All right, that's why your insulin's elevated at all, because you've eaten food. Insulin is not a bad thing. People out there have this kooky notion that insulin is this terrible, horrible thing. But you know what? If your insulin levels are too low, you know you won't build a single ounce of muscle. You'll start losing muscle mass. If your insulin levels drop too low, and if your insulin levels drop to 0, you will be dead within a day. All right, you need insulin to survive. You need insulin for health. You need insulin to build muscle tissue. You need insulin to hold on to the muscle tissue that you have. That's not subject to debate. That is a documented, understood scientific fact in the human body. All right, insulin's not this terrible thing. It's about keeping insulin in a reasonable range. And you know what? People who don't eat huge amounts of refined sugar and who lift weights and do cardio usually have insulin in the normal range, unless they have some other medical condition. But eating food is the cause of the elevated insulin. So when you think about that for a moment, that should trigger something. Why would your insulin levels be elevated and be blunting your fat burning? Because you just ate a bunch of food. Your body's burning the food. So if you have food to burn, why do you need to burn body fat? You don't. If you have enough food to meet all your needs, your body doesn't need to burn body fat. Why would it? You're feeding it fuel. That's your fuel reserve. It taps into it when you burn more than you eat. Well, when you're reaching periods of the day, if you're burning more than you eat, you're going to have periods in the day, even if you ate an almost entirely carbohydrate diet. If you were to eat a diet that was 80–90% white rice, but you are in a caloric deficit, yes, your insulin's going to be up a little bit through certain parts of the day, but it's going to require your insulin to drop low at certain points in the day, because if your insulin levels stay high and you don't have a glucose source to feed that insulin, that will also kill you. So if you have elevated insulin levels and you don't have a fuel source that you've released that's in your bloodstream for the insulin to attach to, not burning fat is the least of your concerns right now. Your brain damage is going to be your biggest immediate concern. Damage to your organs is going to be your biggest immediate concern, not the fact that you might lose 1/100th of an ounce less fat that day. Your death or brain damage or becoming mentally retarded from the brain damage when you go into a coma for a couple hours, that needs to be your immediate concern, because that's what's going to happen. And people need to understand that. Insulin is elevated because you ate food. Now, people will say, well, hey, well, that's okay. What if I just ate a bunch of fat? then my insulin levels won't be elevated, my fat burning won't be blunted. Yeah, you're right. You're right, but you've got a bunch of fat in your bloodstream now. Your body can burn that for fuel. Your muscles can burn that for fuel. It's easier to burn the fat that you're digesting and the fatty acids that are hitting your bloodstream already than it is for your body to tap into your body fat. And the best part, you don't even need insulin for it. You don't need insulin to transport the fat. That happens through GLUT4 transport and other things in the body. So you don't need any hormones that blunt fat burning. Why would you? It's not good at all because your body's got fat available to burn. It's not going to do anything to blunt fat burning. It's going to readily burn all that fat you just ate. But the net effect is the same. While you're burning the food that you ate, whether it's carbs and protein, which are elevating your insulin, or it's fat, which isn't, but you can use it as a direct fuel source, your body's tapping into your body fat less. And people need to understand. They'll try to figure out, well, wait, can I time around this? No, not really, because the reality is, your fat cells in your body are dynamic organisms. You actually lose and gain fat every single day. All right, it's just that at the end of the day, you've probably either gained or lost a net amount of fat. But your body goes through periods of the day, even if you're bulking, there are hours in the day where you lose body fat, even when you're bulking and gaining weight. It's just that you gained more fat over the next 2 hours than the fat that you lost through the day. Okay? Same thing, when you're losing weight, you sometimes gain fat for the next couple hours after a meal, but because you're burning through it faster throughout the rest of the day, it doesn't matter. You end up losing weight and losing body fat. So you need to understand your body is a dynamic organism. When people get too caught up in the minutia, that doesn't matter. Calories in, calories out is still an enormous factor in fat loss, no matter how you try to break it down or talk about insulin. And I think it was even more interesting, I saw Dr. Mike Israetel, someone I like to reference, post on social media yesterday, I think it was. He was saying, you know, all these people sit around worrying about insulin so much as if they could gain a bunch of fat on it. He goes, I know tons of bodybuilders who are on ultra high carb, low fat diets, eating 700 grams of carbs a day and injecting insulin into their body, and they're still struggling to gain weight. They're not gaining any weight, body fat or muscle, because they're just not getting enough food in, or they're not getting enough whatever's going on, that sometimes they stall in gaining weight, even when they're on all these anabolics and injecting insulin directly in larger amounts than your body would produce on ultra high carbs, and they're not gaining weight at all because they're still not getting in enough calories sometimes. And they're on ultra low fat diets, and so your body doesn't tend to store much body fat on ultra low fat diets, but they also aren't getting enough total calories to gain weight. So they're struggling here to gain weight. So much for your insulin hypothesis, because I know bodybuilders personally who are struggling with this right now while injecting this stuff. They still can't gain weight because they're not getting in enough food and enough calories to gain weight, in spite of the fact they're on high carb diets, and in spite of the fact that they're injecting this scary fat storage hormone directly from at a pharmaceutical grade. And they're still not gaining. So much for this, the calories don't matter, that it's just about hormones. This is nonsense. It's not real. And yes, insulin blunts fat burning while it's elevated. But if your insulin isn't elevated all the time, you're probably not eating enough to gain fat. Like, insulin is going to go up and down through the day because you eat food. All right? It's unavoidable. But you're still going to lose weight throughout the day if you're in a caloric deficit. That's the reality of the human body. That's just the way that the human body operates. And people need to understand, they make insulin out to be something bad. Insulin is not good or bad. You have a normal parameter for insulin, and if it drops too low, it's bad, and if it goes too high, it's bad. But in and of itself, it's necessary for life. It's necessary for health. It's a necessary hormone in the body. And quite frankly, the best way to regulate it for most people is to be physically active, eat a balanced diet, get a fair amount of fiber in. All right, that's actually the key to keeping insulin regulated and in the normal range. But having insulin is not a bad thing. And you can have a diet that's insulinogenic, and you're still not going to gain fat from it without a calorie surplus. And that's been studied in study after study after study in the metabolic ward. That's just how it works, guys. That's just how it works. And people need to understand one of the reasons you gain extra body fat in some cases if insulin gets out of control is because the insulin itself, when it's too high and you have bad insulin sensitivity, causes you to store all the blood sugar too quickly, and it causes your blood sugar to drop. When your blood sugar drops, you get hungry. You also move less, so you burn less calories. Well, if you're hungry and you move less, it's still calories in, calories out. That's what elevated insulin does. That's why some people gain body fat at a faster rate when their insulin gets out of control, because it causes them to eat more and move less. It's that simple. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.